of the town, and the Wappingers Creek runs through the town from north to south. The obvious threats to our water can be wells that are built too close together, septic systems that could contaminate wells or contaminate natural bodies of water. But we are discovering other threats as well that have to be considered. Pesticides, herbicides, road de-icer, stormwater runoff, all of these things go into the ground and affect our water supply one way or another. Towns throughout Dutchess County are revising their comprehensive plans and their zoning regulations in order to ensure that water quality is not compromised by development and construction. In Stanford, the protection of all of our natural resources will be one of the important issues dealt with by our Master Plan Committee. So we will be very grateful for their product once they do that. I want to remind you that the school district budget vote is on the 18th of May. Town hall is open from 7 in the morning till 9 at night. Any resident within the school district who is a U.S. citizen can vote. You do not have to be a registered voter for political reasons. Anybody who is a resident and is a U.S. citizen can vote. Just as a thumbnail sketch, state aid to the Pine Plains School District was cut 15%, $1.2 million. Almost more than any other school district of its size. The proposed budget increase over the 9-10 budget is 1.676%. What that means is the tax levy increase is 7.86%. So if you have a house worth $100,000, you would pay $1,052 in school taxes. The school districts, all of the school districts are really challenged this year. So I would encourage you to become familiar with why the budget is what it is, and look at how the school board decided on this budget. You can get information on the budget from the district office in the high school, or you can go online to ppcsd.org and get information about it. There is this, if the school budget doesn't pass, of course it goes into contingency, which is slightly smaller budget. There are 2 candidates for the school board to vote for as well. They're both incumbents. One of them is a Stanford resident, which is really nice. I was hoping we would get a second Stanford resident, but we didn't. But it's Joanne Wolf, who lives in Stanford. Okay. In September, the town board will begin working on our town budget for 2011. Your town board will be dedicated to creating a budget that will carefully and conservatively budget allocating and the spending of taxpayer dollars for 2011. So to prepare for the actual budget process, I would like to start now doing groundwork that will enable all of us to make the best economical and wisest decisions about how and where all of your and our tax dollars will be spent. Our highway department is a bit more than half of the town's budget. That's not unusual, but it's a lot of money any way you slice it. Maintaining roads, culverts, roadsides, and bridges is vital to any town, but because it requires such a large chunk of our budget, I would like to be sure that we plan and spend as responsibly as possible. In order to assess the highway budget, it would be helpful to have a clear document that will spell out the past year's expenses and projections about future equipment and road maintenance needs. Stanford has done this in the past, but not consistently had such documents to help in budget determinations. So last month I asked Tom, who graciously took on the job, to contact many of the towns near us to get copies of their annual reports and 3 to 5 year plans, if they have them, so that the board members will have time to compare them all and decide what information we would like to ask our highway department to provide us before we have to go into budget talks. I was at a municipal financial meeting the other day where the reports from the town of Rhinebeck were made available. So we have one sample to begin with. And Tom, if you could have others maybe by, hopefully by June, then we'll have plenty of time to read them and discuss them, and be able to ask the highway department what we would like to have from them before we have to go into our budget negotiations in September. So I actually made copies of these because they were handed out. So why don't you each take one of these, and it'll just start our file for doing budgets, for doing the highway budget at least. Also, there was a report created by Mark Burdick a few years ago. It is very thorough and with then needed projects and projections. And so trying to spread the fun here, I was wondering, Chris, if you would be able to take it home and read through it and cull out what might be useful to us and give us some notes about it. Okay? Thank you. Okay.
There's a section towards the end where it talks about what needs to be
You don't
done.
need to whisper.
There's a section, if you are limited in time, there's a section towards the end, I believe, that talks about, at that time, the things that he felt still had to be done. And maybe we can work with that. I don't know.
There are two other issues about finances that I'd like to put out. Municipalities are required to meet certain standards in the handling of checks and cash. And while we are a small town, it's always good government to meet standards of good municipal finances where we can. The town has a wonderful auditor who is now in the process of doing our 09 audit, but she has never addressed the segregation or separation of duties that should be involved in the handling of money in town. So Mark, a little while ago I asked you if you could document for the board the handling of checks, just from receipt in town hall to deposit. And then you said you didn't have time, but I'm hoping you would reconsider, because with your background you are the perfect person for the job.
Sure.
That would be great. Thank you.
Work with you and the auditor to...
It's not an audit, it's just really
I understand.
just following the trail. It's not at all an audit. It's not a complicated thing.
Madam Supervisor, there was a number of times where that policy was stated, because there were times where different people would receive cash in the town, and much of that had been rechanneled so that the clerk would receive at various times when it was discussed all the payments to go to the clerk. So for instance, I believe it was at that time the building department wouldn't get the cash, it would go to the clerk. And there were different plans, and I know that's changed over the years, but there has been policies in place, and they've been varied at different
And
times.
they've been varied.
We currently have a monetary policy that was approved.
But I would like to look at it again, okay?
Just want to be clear.
Thank you.
If, Virginia, if you can get me copies of those when you
Sure.
get them from
Sure.
Rita or Bonnie.
You could get it from Rita. It's easy, but I have it in my files too.
Okay.
I can even email it to you.
I guess it's not that big.
No, just one page.
And there's only one other thing. Johanna and I have spoken briefly about the purchasing process in town. And we have both thought over time that the town should have a clearer set of procedures for purchasing for our town's departments employees to follow. So I'm going to ask you, Johanna, if you could do some research on established purchasing policies and standards for municipalities, and get a report back to us so that we could look at ours in comparison and decide if we want to amend it or not. Okay? That's it. I just want to say one more thing, though, and then I will completely drop the issue. There are times when I have not answered a comment which I thought was incorrect in a town board meeting, because I simply wanted to keep moving the process forward, and I didn't want things to get bogged down. If there's going to be an insistence on anything verbatim, then I will make a point of taking the time to answer, which I would prefer not to. I would prefer that we could just keep moving ahead and do the town's business. Okay, the next thing on the agenda is privilege of the floor.